There we go. So we'll get started. There's no one else waiting to come in. So I want to welcome everybody here and introduce myself. I'm Susan Fox, and I'm the Acting Executive Director for the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce. A few housekeeping things. We ask that everyone in the bottom left corner mute yourselves just for background noise, makes it a little easier. And also on the bottom of the screen, you'll see a chat. So you can turn the chat on, and while we have the session going on, if you have questions that come up, other than we have some previously submitted questions, you can ask them. So we have today our virtual town hall with Cape Breton Canso MP Mike Kelloway. Mike is a lifelong resident of Cape Breton Canso, and he knows that positive change starts with community. That's why Mike has worked hard, excuse me, to be a community leader in Cape Breton and Northern Nova Scotia. His passion for community and economic development is defined by his desire to have an impact on those around him. Mike grew up in Glace Bay, was elected as the Member of Parliament for Cape Breton Canso in October of 2019, and is a strong advocate for healthcare and community economic development. He is a powerful voice in Cape Breton Canso and Parliament Hill. He keeps his constituents top of mind in his roles in various committees and interparliamentary groups, including the Standing Committee for Health and Standing Committee for Justice, as well as the Atlantic, Rural, and National Caucus. We've asked Mike to join us today so that he can help us understand some of the programs and funding and excuse me, the federal government has put in place to help businesses through the COVID pandemic. Some people have submitted questions in advance, and as mentioned in the live chat at the bottom, you can ask your questions in that, and we'll try and get most of them answered. And Mike has agreed that we'll do some follow-up on the rest of those. Welcome, Mike, and thanks for joining, everybody.
Thanks, Susan. I appreciate this, to do this at the Strait Area Chamber. I worked in the Strait area for almost 11 years with the Nova Scotia Community College, sometimes more, sometimes a little less, but it was the place that actually hired me. The Strait Area campus hired me as a manager for First Nations training and education. And I've said this before, over the last 11 years, I've seen firsthand what the Quad counties in particular have done and are capable of doing. And we are in touch quite a lot with the municipal councils in Antigonish and Guysborough, in Richmond and Inverness, and also the town of Port Hawkesbury and the town of Mulgrave, actually on a weekly basis. So it's great to connect with you folks today. And I'll just say a couple of things, and then let's get to the questions, because I think that's the most important thing. For the past 6 weeks, we've introduced a lot of measures that basically has taken the stance of a whole of government approach. So many of the first measures were designed to focus on looking at assisting people who were going to lose their income or lost their income. So, we've seen the CERB, we've seen the wage subsidy, we've seen now in the recent week focus on commercial rent. And there's a whole host of other measures in and around $625 million to help the 6 RDAs across the country, which ACO is a part of it, to address items that we may have missed in terms of small and medium-sized business assistance. There's a lot more that we've announced over the past 6 weeks. I was talking to someone in government about 3 weeks ago. This was 3 weeks ago. And, I said, so there's so many new measures coming out in the past couple of weeks. How is the public servants, how are they working? How are they getting along? How are they making this happen? And he said that in his estimation, it would take 3 to 4 years in a normal time to develop these policies and get them out the door. And we're doing it in 6 weeks. And we're doing it not just as a federal government, but we're doing it with the provinces and the municipalities, and also working with the opposition. So this is a time where everyone is working together for the most part, and I think it shows. And the announcements that are coming out on a daily basis, we recognize that we're not hitting everybody, and so calls like this or videos like this, which I've been doing for the past 6 weeks, I've seen firsthand input that has come from groups in our riding has made its way to the national stage through our meetings with caucus, our meetings with ministers. Case in point, the 10% wage subsidy that was originally announced for businesses. There were approximately 15 of us across the country who met with different ministers to say we need to do better. So, and that came from constituents. So I look forward to the questions today. I may not have the answers, but we are taking them down. Natasha is here. She's below me, at least in my block, she's below me, and Natasha Kocher. And we make a point to get back to everyone that sends us a question, a comment, to ensure that we get you the right information. In some cases, I will be able to answer it. Or in some cases, I can give you Mike Kelloway's assumptions. And I'll stress it by doing the really pretentious air quotes when I do that, because everyone loves air quotes. But I'm here to answer questions and look forward to the discussion. Thanks, Susan.
Okay, so questions that were submitted in advance. I had one lady comment that after last week's announcement of the benefits to the student, she's having a hard time hiring students because they will make just as much through the student benefit as they would working for her. She's wondering what, if anything, the government is planning to do with this.
It's a great question, and I would say to the questioner, that also applies, I think, now to CERB. We're hearing some rumblings from businesses that employees are on CERB, and it's hard for them to get employees because of the $2,000 a month. So this has been brought to the attention of Cabinet as well, from myself and others, in terms of needing to looking at measures to try to facilitate or make the monies that we have invested into work experience a little bit more attractive to the learner and to the employer. So stay tuned on that. When we're trying to get money up the door quickly and very quickly, there's going to be some gaps. This is one of them. So it is a serious concern, not just on the student side, but also on just regular employees that are off on CERB right now. So there'll be more to come on that. Now, the other aspect of the student programs is that there are a fair amount of other programs that the student and the employer can look at that may be just as or a little bit more lucrative, perhaps on the financial side, but certainly on the experience side. So we've announced about 5 different student allotments that may be more of a carrot for students when you're looking at allotments for projects that they can get that can help fund their tuition, and also exceptionally good resume builder type of funds that can help those students. So to answer your question, it is a measure that needs to be, I don't know if the right word is to be tightened up, but I think perhaps more incentive on the employment side would be great. Now, I can say this: we have just put in our student Canada Summer Jobs submission on Friday, and we're looking at, I think, about 400 student positions in the riding. What we're looking at is that some of those submissions will probably hypothetically not go this year because the nature of the job. So hopefully we can look at the Canada Summer Jobs program, look at the fact that we're paying 100% minimum wage, and that can be topped up to some degree depending on the employer. So there's a whole host of things on that we're looking at, student or non-student, that we need to tighten up, in my opinion.
Yeah, and with that CERB, they're still allowed the students to make $1,000. Is that correct? Someone's asking.
That's correct. Yeah, you can make 1,000 or less and apply for the CERB.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, someone had the comment on the side. So.
Yep.
So the next question, they have a small incorporated consulting business, and when profitable, they pay themselves dividends. Revenue drop is 30%, but they don't appear to be eligible for assistance. And will the government be addressing this? And also, is the understanding that It's our understanding that the dividends are not considered eligible when calculating the payroll thresholds and to enable small businesses to apply for the 40,000 interest on the Canada Emergency Business Account. I know you changed for the CERB, you did change to allow dividends to be considered. And is there any talks around changing that for the Canada Emergency Business Account?
Yes. So I would say when you look at what we submit on a weekly basis to Cabinet, my office, dividends is right up there.
Yeah.
And we brought that up. I've also brought up too the threshold of it was originally 50,000 to $1 million of payroll to obtain the interest-free loan over 2 years of 40,000. So we've knocked that down to 20. But I'm advocating for it to be knocked down more. And there's a couple of reasons for it. The nature of our riding, where we have a lot of service-based industries and tourism-related industries, that you have a finite window to operate, and you may not get to 20 grand. And so I would say dividends, focusing on chipping away, working with Cabinet to look at the 20 grand and lowering that a bit, are issues that are brought up on a daily basis from small and medium-sized business owners from the riding. That, along with seniors. I get a lot of emails from seniors asking if we are going to increase the old age security and also fishery. The fishery is right now a pressing item along with the dividends as well. But the answer to your original question, yes, we are looking at that, and we are on every night other than, well, every night we have a caucus call.
Yes.
And the caucus call is with the cabinet ministers. And so we consistently bring up these items, such as dividends, such as wage subsidies, such as banks, and asking some banks to play ball with their with their loans and whatnot. So these are constant. So dividends is on the radar, is certainly on my radar, and it's one that I'm hammering home.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. I know that we've had several calls at the office about it, and then that was one that was submitted in. So yeah. I know it's a pressing issue for some.
For sure.
So last week I had a phone conversation with a gentleman, and he's currently operating at a 5% occupancy rate. He runs a motel down north. Okay. And in August, he will have a liability of at least $25,000 with taxes, loan payments, and insurance. He will apply for the 40,000 emergency business account, but he knows that that's not going to go far considering where he's operating now and that the season won't look to increase very much. So he's probably going to need to withdraw from his RRSP, and he's wondering if the government would consider allowing small business owners to access their funds through RRSPs without recurring income tax. And I know he submitted that, I believe, maybe to your office, so you may have asked him this question or answered this question already, but for everyone on the chat, we would be interested to know.
Sure. So yes, the RRSPs has come up to be able to take it out without a penalty. Is being floated with Cabinet as well. And the other aspect of this, I would say, is with respect to small and medium-sized business. And there'll be more to come out and ACOA's role in this, but part of the $625 million spread across 6 groups like ACOA across the country, my understanding is that one of the major focuses will be to support small to medium-sized business on the operating side. So this is another way to try to catch businesses that may not have the ability to feel the full benefit of the 40 grand or may need more because of their circumstance. So what I would say is keep your eyes open in terms of the framework that ACOA is working on to help small and medium-sized business. And I know they're working on it around the clock, as you can imagine.
Okay. Yeah, I know that the Atlantic Chamber, we had put the question forth to the government on March 20th asking about it. So I know it's been on their radar for a bit.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, the other aspect of that, so you folks know, is we've been meeting with a lot of my office and myself, meeting a lot across the riding virtually with tourism operators, and we've had numerous discussions and meetings with Terry Smith, with Destination Cape Breton, and some other groups on the mainland. And we put forward to Melanie Joly. Melanie is the Minister of ACOA, but she's also the Minister of Tourism. And based on the feedback that we've received from tourism operators and Terry and others, we've put forward a recommendations document on tourism in our riding as well, which was received by Melanie and acknowledged by her as well. So what I would suspect, and these will be under Mike's assumptions, is that over the past 6 weeks, we've been getting money out the door for individuals to organizations like the United Way. I see Lynn here around to help seniors and vulnerable groups, not-for-profits. We've been focused on wage subsidies, both loans to businesses and the like. We've focused on some sectoral-based support with respect to oil and gas and agriculture. And what I would think in the next couple of weeks, perhaps even this week, is that you'll start to see some sectoral focused support for the fishery. And I also believe that the tourism is forthcoming very soon in terms of other supports to connect to what we've provided today.
Okay, good. Okay. I have a question here in the chat. There has been no requirement for banks to reduce credit card interest rates, and each individual business needs to deal with their bank directly. There was talk that the re-legislated interest rate, banks should not be making money off of the backs of this crisis. And I know not only the bank interest rates, but I know we had discussions before about credit card transactions for small businesses. And they, you know, is there any talks around legislation around that?
Well, Bill Morneau, the Minister of Finance, has met pretty religiously with the banks in terms of many of the topics that you just talked about now. I can tell you that is a frustration point for me, and for many other MPs, in particular the Atlantic Canadian ones. I'm not sure if we're the loudest or the more crankier of the caucuses, but it really burns me that some banks have been quite good, but some banks are making and have made record profits, and now is the time to, I think, use some compassion and understanding to assist some of the businesses that need it. So we have actually officially reached out to Bill on that to say, you know, are there any tools in the government disposal? And it gets a little tricky with banks because they are obviously not part of government. But we are a partner with them in so many respects. So I can tell you that I've been frustrated with some banks in particular, and I've echoed that. And so have other MPs, by the way. Yeah. And on all sides of the House, government and opposition. So what we can do as MPs is to bring it directly to Bill, which we've been doing, and also to Sean Casey. Sean is a parliamentary secretary for finance, and Sean has heard our concerns around some banks in terms of not playing ball to assist and help, you know, in the way they could and should.
Yeah, for sure. Someone asked me, they wanted to circle back to the student question, and they have a question. There's grandson is a student and has worked at Cabot and made less than 5,000. Is there anything for them? I think that would be the CERB, like they could still apply.
Are they still a student?
He says he's a student and he worked at Cabot.
Okay, so
yes is the answer to that question.
My answer would be that the new, so my answer would be on that is that there would be opportunities for work this summer or fall or winter. That's the other thing about the Canada Summer Jobs Grant. It should be really renamed because now we've extended it to next February. So people can work part-time not young people, students or people that are youth in the youth category can work from this time till February. There's other measures too for that student to look at in and around service learning projects, and there's another project that it fails me right now, another initiative within the student summers program. But what I would say to that person, quite frankly, is that they should reach out to me in my office, and we can give them a list of the opportunities for students that I think might serve that student well. So they wouldn't be eligible for the 5,000. Sorry, they wouldn't be eligible for the CERB. However, they would be eligible for other summer employment, fall employment, winter employment under the new student program.
Another question from the chat is the EI cut date to be eligible to apply for the CERB flexible. My husband's EI ended on early December and the cut date is December 29th. Is there any flexibility in that case?
Well, right now, no. That person, are they still on EI? Did they say they're still on EI?
They were in school and their EI ended.
Yeah. So that'd be one that I'd ask that if they can reach out to our office in particular, because there's nuances there that we could speak to. But right now, that person, if they declared EI before January 1, I think they fall into that area that they wouldn't fall in line with the new measures. However, if that person is a student or whether it's full-time, part-time, there may be some options and some other measures that we can take a look at for that person. So my coordinates, I think, would be provided by you, Susan, if you don't mind giving them the coordinates, and we can set up a call with myself and that person.
For sure. So back to the questions here.
By the way, I didn't ask, how's everybody doing? Everyone okay? This does remind me that every time I do these Zoom meetings, it reminds me of the Brady Bunch, literally. Say the people that are smiling are older like me.
Mm-hmm.
The millennials are probably going like, what's the Brady Bunch?
Yeah, we're all here and everybody is on mute, so they can't answer.
Hey, there you go.
All good.
Okay.
So let me see. The next one is the Mabel River Inn. David had reached out, and he's typically employs 2 seasonal housekeeping staff and 1 part-time housekeeping staff right now. And based on what's happening with the COVID pandemic, are you expecting this year's tourism sector? They're not expecting this year's tourism season, to occur. Should he be putting his 2 full-time staff on the 75% wage subsidy and allow the individuals to access other programs for the extending their EI? And he does realize that it is optional and encourage the employer to do the 25% top up, but is not clear as to which program is best for the employer and the 2 full-time staff. And he wants to thank you for the supports and to minimize the spread of COVID.
Okay. There's a lot of questions there.
Yeah.
I really, on these situations, I don't like to give advice on what an employer should do. I mean, if you look at the option of the 75% wage subsidy and connect that to, is there going to be a tourism season or not? And or some type of modified tourism season. So David would need to look, long and hard in terms of his own, business situation, and to see what would be best for his business on the 75% wage subsidy. But that is definitely one option. The other option is in relation to some of the other measures that we have for basic income, and that's exactly what CERB is. CERB is, in essence, a basic income. So for most of you folks, probably all of you, you realize that that the CERB is, it looks like EI, but it's not EI. And it's not insurable. So it's up to 16 weeks. Now that could change depending on where we find ourselves in the next month or so in terms of either extending it or some other version of it. But to go back to the original question, I would say, we have some measures in place, David. Take a look at it, see what best fits your model at this current time, and make your judgments accordingly. But I'd also say, if you want to have a conversation one-on-one and kind of go in a little more deeper on those questions, we'll have that call. We get about, I think, about 300 emails a day and about 100 calls a day. And I have 5 people on staff. Natasha's one. You don't see it, but she usually has a telephone surgically connected to her ear. But let's talk to David if he's up for it, to deeper dive on that, because I don't want to give advice until I
considering everybody's circumstance. Yeah.
And I think the thing is that there are some measures there to assist or to help. The question is which ones best fit David's reality at the moment.
I put Mike's email in the chat. I can also put mine in there, so you can email both of those emails. And then if you're looking to have a conversation with Mike or just for more information, then we'll be able to get it to you through that.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and any questions beyond this Zoom? Again, some of you have heard this story, but I'll say it again because I think it's really important. About 5 days before the first response package came out, we submitted a briefing note to Bill Morneau. Some of the people actually on this call helped inform that briefing note. And David came back, Bill's office came back, a senior advisor, to say, thanks for putting together this briefing note. There's some really key points we want to do a deep analysis on. Some of it was around, we didn't call it CERB, but it was like a basic income. And that came from people on this call and people on other calls like it. So I've seen firsthand, especially during this crisis, how local insight can play a role in national policy. And I've also said I said, I wrote the briefing note. I said, the information comes from the constituency.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, collect everybody's opinions and ideas.
Yeah.
So question that was submitted earlier was chiropractors, physiotherapists, dentists, optometrists are considered primary care practitioners and encouraged to see patients on emergencies only. However, the requirement for CERB specified that you cannot make an income for 14 consecutive days. If a practitioner sees even one patient, then it makes them ineligible. Yet their income will diminish significantly. Can you clarify if this 14-day period does apply to primary care practitioners who fulfill their duty to provide emergency service to patients, and will they still be eligible for CERB?
Yeah, this one's a little cloudy for me. I'd have to take a look at it again. Natasha, I believe that there's something in there for these individuals, if I'm not mistaken, around essential workers.
Yeah, so I think my understanding of the way the essential worker program is happening, and Mike, you can fill in the gaps, is that it's being worked through with the provinces and the territories right now. And so the provinces and territories, their governments will kind of decide how they want to funnel that money out. Premier McNeil has made some comments about that already, and I think he is just looking to explore more what this package could mean for Nova Scotians. So stay tuned, I guess. I don't know, Mike, if you have anything else on that.
No, thank you for finishing my thought, which was barely a thought. But yeah, that would be one. There's several items in particular we're working on with the province of Nova Scotia and the rest of the provinces. One you've already seen with respect to commercial rent, but there's some other related items in terms of providing a bit of a bump up for essential workers, people that are working in long-term healthcare facilities and things of that nature that requires a provincial federal understanding and agreement. So yeah, so thanks for that, Natasha. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Question from the chat: when we come out of the emergency, who is planning to provide business with an analysis of challenges, opportunities, and get things moving again? The COA, the Atlantic Economic Council, who would probably take on that?
I would certainly think a COA would play a fundamental role, not the only role, but my opinion would be they would play a role in that. I think it would be a pretty broad brush to get a sense from chambers, and other kind of sectoral groups, unions, things of that nature. Because I've said this a lot. In the past 6 weeks, we've been keeping an eye on, obviously focused on health and also the economy. But that's not going to go away in 6 weeks, 6 months, or even 6 years. That we're going to need to look at, in my opinion, some significant investments that provide return on investment in the next 6 months. One is around infrastructure. And I think we need to look at, and we are looking at this. How do we get people back to work in solid numbers while at the same time looking at economic advancements for municipalities and counties and things of that nature around infrastructure? So whether it's roads or whether it is other types of infrastructure that are needed, that have been needed for some time, by the way, that will last a generation, that'll leave a legacy, is really important. So what we have done, we have met with the municipalities and the towns and different sectoral groups, and we're in the process now of putting in a submission to the Minister of Infrastructure on what we believe in each of the municipalities is a priority or have priorities for infrastructure. Now, the minister has asked for a generic kind of idea, but we're providing her a specific idea because we've been working very, very closely with all the municipalities in our riding. So, and also the MLAs, both on the government side and on the opposition side as well, and staying in contact. To go back to the central question, I believe that it will certainly be, it will be a whole government approach as the coronavirus's response has been in terms of the economy and 6 months, 6 weeks and down the road. But it will be working with existing groups that we work with, chambers, partnerships, ACOA being a major and important piece to that puzzle. But also, this is the chance, I think, for us to be innovative. It's going to sound very odd what I'm going to say, but if you look at history and you look at monumental times in at least the 20th century, when there's been a crisis, that it certainly provides sadness, sorrow, anxiety, but it also has provided some innovation from that. So this is a chance for us, I think, to be innovative in terms of how government and any NGOs and other type of similar groups that are NGOs and government departments can work together for the common good. So my answer would be ACOA and others, but I'm sure that there are other players involved that will provide great value as we hopefully either move on from COVID or live with COVID for a period of time to address the economy, but also health, to address the health issues, the immediate health issues that come with the coronavirus. But also something that does keep me up quite a lot is the mental health impact to the country, to community, to individuals. And we need to look at that, being on the health committee and being, I'd say since late January, we were the first committee, the health committee, to get up and running, to ask questions and bring in witnesses around COVID. And we've been the only one operational during COVID. We've been doing our parliamentary committees via Zoom. And you know, this is certainly, and you folks watch the news and you have people in your lives that are connected to the health file. This is not a sprint. This is going to be a bit of a marathon. So it's going to have different stages related to the economy, health in the economy, which is going to require working with groups like ACOA, chambers, partnerships, and other NGOs and government departments. So there has to be I think, probably a more fluid response than post-COVID, or pre-COVID, in terms of we're going to have to do a lot of analysis and synthesis quicker, as we've demonstrated, I think, through the COVID response post-COVID.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, it definitely is a marathon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another question that we have going forward is it appears that the lobster fishery will be a go as per the established dates in Zone 29. People know that it will be difficult for people to respect the distancing measures imposed by the President of Emergency Measures, and fisher people go as far as to say that it is impossible to maintain a 2-meter distancing while on a boat, especially a lobster fishing boat. The boat is also a work area where more than family members work. Do people who fish lobster have special or different guidelines to follow while on their boats and wharves? And with respect to markets, is there, so it's kind of multi-question here. With respect to markets, is there a plan in place to compensate workers if the season has to be cut short due to the lack of market?
Okay, I'm going to try to answer those 8 questions. So let me start by saying, I think I mentioned this during this Zoom call, is the fishery in particular has been one that has been a daily, we've worked on daily in my office in particular. So right now we're up to about 48 meetings over the past 5 weeks with all fishing associations, harvesters, plant workers, owner operators, you name it. And so I've gotten a PhD, well, at least I could write my PhD thesis because of the fishers and how they've educated me from Guysborough to Glace Bay to Inverness and Shetty Camp and all points in between. So let me go back to some of the questions that were asked. Right now, the fishers, harvesters, plant workers, we'll go with the harvesters. The harvesters are receiving protocol, I believe a 1-page protocol to follow on the dock and also on the boat. Yesterday we announced measures, about 62 million, to provide PPE and other type of safety equipment and measures to the plants. And I believe that'll also be allocated to the fishers. What we've been doing over the past 6 weeks, and I've worked very closely with the fishers on this, is that if you look at our fishing associations throughout the riding from northern Nova Scotia throughout Cape Breton, they are distinct, they are unique. There's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences. Some areas want to fish and want to do so with clear health directives from the provincial government and clear directives from DFO, which they are getting. Others, for health reasons and economic reasons, would like to have an option. So right now they have a smaller version of an option that I would like. They have the CERB. If they feel like for health reasons they can't go out, they can collect CERB. But the problem with CERB, as I mentioned earlier, it's a good thing. I mean, the CERB is a great thing, but one of the, I guess, realities of CERB is that if you're a fisher and you go on CERB, after the 16 weeks, there is no EI, right? So what we put forward to the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, based on a lot of meetings with all the fishing associations and individual fishers, is we've said one of the things that we can do and do well is to put forward an extension of EI for those that can't fish for health or economic reasons. Provide an option there for people. So I know that's being reviewed, and we've pressed, and Natasha would attest to this, we've pressed pretty hard to the point where I think there may be a gigantic poster in Ottawa with my face on it saying, if this guy calls about the fishery, run, because we've been pushing it very, very hard. So my hope is that we look at that recommendation seriously as a government, which I believe we are, and we look at that as an option for fishers. When it comes to the health and safety of fishers, yeah, that's another thing that keeps me up at night, especially fishers on a fishing boat. And it is deemed an essential work, but at the same point, we have 2 things at play here. We have the health perspective, and then again, the economy perspective. When you look at the fishery, it is around what is the market? Right now, I believe the price for a lobster right now is about $5. My understanding, if it hits 3, it becomes, a question of, do you even fish? right? So we announced the measures yesterday for processing, and I believe this week we will make public other measures for harvesters. Now, I can't tell you what they are because the cabinet has got a thing called cabinet confidentiality. I know this because I keep on asking the questions, but I can tell you what we put forward are solid recommendations that I think there are about 6, and in that 6, the EEI is one of them. There's some others to assist fishers along the way as well. So the fishing season for many would start on the date that it normally starts, and then on the Gulf, it's been delayed to May 15th. And there are those that like that change, and there are those that do not like that change. And I'm meeting with all the groups, and I am putting forth the measures for those that want to fish as recommendations. And I am also for those that do not want to fish for health and economic reasons, and I put those forward. So those are recommendations that have been with the minister for the past 2 weeks. And I believe something will come out in the next 5 to 7 days, I believe.
And the extension on the Gulf, isn't extending the season, it's just delaying the start, is it not? Or am I correct?
Yeah, because there were some that wanted to start May 1st. There was some that wanted to start May 15th, so it was delayed to May 15th.
Yeah.
And so again, in all transparency, there are those that think it's a great idea, and there are those that I've talked to on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and this morning that would disagree with that move, and we're working with them to bring forth their concerns to the Ministry of Fisheries.
Yeah. Okay, well, the next question that we have, just to try and get them all in, we're coming up to the last little bit.
Okay.
This person participated in a national evaluation program for local nursing homes about 15 years ago. And it was known at that time that not all nursing homes were created equal. Some have private rooms, some have shared bathrooms, single occupancy. Sometimes there's 4 that share a bathroom. Given the situation that we are living today and knowing the importance of social distancing, what do you think should be done to rid communities of inadequate facilities, such as described in the comment?
That's a really great question. It's one that we talk about in our household as we have someone in a long-term healthcare facility. We have, as many people on Zoom here would have, firsthand knowledge. Here's what I've seen over the past 6 weeks being on the health committee. And we've had so many witnesses from so many walks of life with respect to COVID. We have had people from corrections, people from law enforcement, people from long-term healthcare facilities, people from the research world, scientific world, and the business world. What I get a sense of is there seems, at least from these witnesses, more of, I think, an interest to have the federal government more involved from setting national standards and aftercare with respect to healthcare, but in particular long-term healthcare for facilities. And I find that very interesting. I wrote a note to one of my colleagues saying, you see the trend that's happening here. But that becomes an interesting dance because healthcare is, we fund it, healthcare is, and set, in many cases, national standards, but primarily it's administered by the province. What I think needs to happen, and I wrote this to actually the Minister of Seniors on Thursday. She asked me her question was, what are the priorities do you believe right now for seniors? I gave her my answer. I said an increase in OAS, an increase in this, an increase in that, and also a strategy with the provinces on long-term healthcare facilities. I think it's beyond overdue. I think the crisis has shown what many of us have known for some time. There's some great long-term healthcare facilities, but we need a strategy that's lockstep with the provinces. And we need it now. There's no 2 ways about it. And so my answer would be, there are a couple things that I think as an MP that I've been focused on and will continue to focus on, and there's some new areas that I'll be pushing when we go back to virtual parliament, which is tomorrow, and then beyond virtual parliament. One is one of the things we were looking at before COVID was looking at universal basic income pilot for the riding. And the other is around looking at long-term healthcare facilities. And I really believe and passionately about the fact that we need to do a lot better, but that requires working with the provinces. So that's something as an MP that I know I'll be focused on and pushing on. So the answer to your question, viewer, caller, writer, is we need a strategy, and we need a strategy that has teeth, meaning we all have been part of some great strategic plans, and some of them, let's be honest, keep the window open on a hot day. They're as only as good as the legislation behind it, and the teeth, and the teeth is law. So I'm under no illusions that that's an easy task, but it's something I feel very passionate about. So stay tuned on that one.
Yeah, I know it's the nursing homes is the situation that everybody has someone connected to, and it is a great concern. So greatly appreciate that. So another question is, the tourism sector had a dismal September and October due to Hurricane Dorian, and now COVID-19 is going to take at least the beginning of the upcoming season. Many small business owners rely on these times to make ends meet year-round. Current aid packages look good, but don't apply to most. With the recent upswing in tourism, there are many new tourism operators around. What is the government planning to do with these businesses? Is there going to be any hands-on regional programs to deal with them in on a case-by-case basis?
Mm-hmm. I think what you'll see from a federal perspective, and mind you, there's certainly my hat's off to the province for effectively, I think, triaging this from a health perspective, but also from an economic perspective. There's a lot of different measures that are being put in place from the province. But when it comes to local connectivity to small and medium-sized businesses, one of the announcements we made on Friday, as I mentioned, was monies to ACOA and the Western Diversification Fund, and ACOA's equivalent in Ontario and Quebec and in Northern Canada. So I would suspect that those monies, those measures, those frameworks, and the ability to work with people from ACOA will be, first and foremost, available to local businesses in the tourism sector. And also bear in mind, too, that there's more help on the way for tourism, hopefully soon, because the tourism season is technically going to begin very soon. So between the measures we've announced, as your questioner mentioned, and ones that we are going to announce soon, hopefully there's enough there to enable people to remain whole, get through this tough time.
Yeah, I know that a lot of tourism businesses are having questions and conversations, and have reached out to us wondering, what should I do? And it's a hard answer, Yeah, because we don't know when the end is and how will we have a second wave. So yeah.
Absolutely, but if you have questions from the chamber, like after this, just send them to us, and we'll connect with you and the people that are asking the questions, and do our best to answer.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Yeah.
So back to the students and the employers. The original students that she normally has, university in grade 12, normally make between $1,500 to $2,000 a month working for her, minimum 30 hours a week. It's how I get through the summers staffing wise. They are asking now, these students are now asking if they can have hours that will not go over $1,000 a month, creating a shortage of workers as some are refusing to come to work, except for the grade 10 and 11 students who don't apply. These programs don't apply. Yeah.
Yeah, very similar to the one of the questions I asked before, or you asked before. Yeah. So yeah, I think when you get measures like this that are unprecedented out the door, you do your best to analyze, the good, the bad, and potentially, I won't say ugly, but certainly what might illustrate as an unintended consequence. So the government is really aware of this one. and the MPs are exceptionally aware of it and are looking at to put some measures on the measures to
Yeah, it
see
becomes a
how
catch-22.
how we can incentivize those that can be working.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of the first questions too, so it was just kind of a follow-up on that. Um, One of the last ones that I have, unless anyone else on the call has some more, is the pharmacies are, I think there was fears of a shortage of medications, so they are only allowing a 1-month dispensing of medication, so you can't, a lot of people in rural communities get a 3-month supply because they don't
Yeah.
come to town that often, and they're also being encouraged to stay home. They don't want to be entering the pharmacies especially, and also the pharmacies will charge upwards of $10 per dispensing fee. So is there any changes or any, like, as they said that originally it was because of shortage of medication, but there doesn't appear to be that now, and I believe the New Brunswick government said that there wasn't a shortage there, and I don't know that you guys have any
Yeah, I do know that
conversations around that.
going by memory, like last week seems like 2 years ago, but I believe the provincial government announced some measures around the dispensing fees and foregoing those for seniors, and I think there were some other measures in place as well for seniors and the pharmacy side of things. But to go back to the rationing of medication, we go on the basis of what the pharmacy association tells us, and also the individual provinces with respect to Ministry of Health, both federally and provincially. So I would suspect that will remain to be the case for at least the foreseeable future. But you may see changes in that as we evolve over the summer months. But I did ask that question to the National Pharmacy Association, and they were in agreement that it was best to support those provinces that declared that they would feel more comfortable if there was some rationing with medication. So I know it provides an economic hardship to seniors in particular, but also people that live in rural areas. But I think we're probably more on the downside of that than we are on the other side of that. So I suspect that, my assumption would be that would be changing in due course very soon.
Yeah, I know that they commented that it was this weekend and they had to pay whatever and could only get one. So the next time they would normally only pay one dispensing fee. So it was just their concern.
Sure.
Another question that we have here: is there an incentive or a grant for business starting up now to help provide services or products to help the community, business to business or business to consumer during this pandemic? So like a business that would actually help businesses during this time. They're not mentioning what business it is, but is there any grants or programs for incentive to start a new business?
Oh, to start a new business? Well, I think we're starting to see a little bit of this. We were talking about this morning on our staff call at 8:30, and
some of that are co-funding.
Yeah, I think a co is an option, but to go back to opportunities within a very serious situation, we've had some companies here in Cape Breton and in northeastern Nova Scotia that are perhaps not new businesses, but changing their business structure in the sense of what they're delivering. Mm-hmm. So we've seen businesses that are now getting into the creation of masks or securing masks, PPE. We're seeing some businesses looking at changing their distillery or altering it somewhat to provide spirits, but also hand sanitizer. And so when it comes to new businesses, I think that there may be an opportunity for many to look at either starting something new or modifying some existing the existing business structure. So when it comes to a COA and CBDC and BDC and EDC, there's always options on that front. But right now, in terms of a specific pot of money that's designated as a result of COVID that may go to ACOA. That will be, I'm sure, sussed out in the coming days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's all the questions we have. And what timing? What? We're an hour in. Anybody else have any further questions on the call? Oh, Lynn wanted to mention the funding applications are open for programs through United Way. The addressing food security for families and seniors, and the catchment area is Antigonish. So if any, as far as Antigonish, if someone is aware of organizations in need of assistance, they can reach out to Lynn at unitedwaycapebreton.com. So LYNNE, and that's in the chat to everybody.
Great partner too, by the way. They've been entrusted with a lot of responsibility during COVID, and good reason for it. The work that they do in community. So.
No, for sure. Yeah. So, any further questions?
Did we question everyone out?
Must have.
If there's no questions, again, Natasha has provided my coordinates. There's never a bad time to reach out. We try to get back to people very quickly. Sometimes it's a day or two just because of the volume. But just let us know if you want us at another Strait event, or if you have a specific question or idea, concern, idea. We need them. And we've been very, very much helped because of them. And that means the community has as well. So I want to thank you folks for your leadership. It's not an easy time. And it's one that can have a lot of anxiety attached to it, and does have a lot of anxiety attached to it. And of course, with the shooting last week in Cumberland County, it just elevates things through the roof in terms of anxiety and depression and sadness. But the one thing that I've known for 11 years of working in the Strait area is that the community comes together, and that will continue through this time and after this time. Mm-hmm. So, we'll get through it. And, as a government, as an MP, I want to know your concerns are mine, and that's not a tagline. Your concerns are mine. I want to be part of the solution with you at the grassroots. So let's keep it up. Let's keep these conversations up, because they actually mean a lot, and they can have an impact, as I've seen firsthand.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, because I know some of the things that we have brought forward have definitely, through conversations with yourself and through conversations with Minister Jolie, that has made some changes early on, and I'm sure still. So.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so thank you everyone for coming on the call. Greatly appreciated, and thank you, Mike, for answering all our questions. And we'll share the email addresses with the people that have registered for the call, because I know there's a few that didn't make it. So if they have any other follow-up questions, they can follow up with you. Perfect.
Thanks, folks. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Time. Stay safe. Bye now.
Bye now.
Thanks everybody.